Welcome to Gaming with Spoons. Today we are going to be talking about Square Enix potentially remaking Chrono Trigger. Now you ask anybody who grew up from the 90s playing video games, Chrono Trigger is going to be one of the highlights of that particular era. But more than that, Chrono Trigger has been a game that has far surpassed that and really stood the test of time. It is a game that still today holds up very well. And I think Square Enix is probably going to remake it here if they don't release that information at E3. We're going to see it sometime soon, but I definitely think it's on the horizon. Now, let's go in and kind of talk about what Square Enix would need to do in order to remake such a fantastic game. First and foremost, let's talk about what would really need to change. The graphical style definitely does need to be enhanced. I feel like that the 16-bit era graphical style has aged very well, since that's almost an artistic style in of itself. But it's definitely something that I think should go forward from there on out. I think it's something that Square Enix needs to really heavily consider. Now, if we're talking about a graphical style, I think something along the veins of Dragon Quest XI would be very fitting for it. I think they could do some really great things with that graphical style and kind of go from there. I think the graphics would really benefit from being that highly stylized, cartoony-looking graphics. You know, they definitely would have to get Akira Toriyama to come back and kind of rework the character models more into modern day, which would be something I'd be completely okay with. And honestly, a studio that I think could do really well at this would be none other than Level 5, the creators of the Dragon Quest franchise. And the reason I say that, they do very well at making RPG franchises. They do very well at knowing what they're doing. They've had experience with that before. They have a lasting relationship with Square Enix. Obviously, Square Enix owns the rights to Dragon Quest, and that's something that they're continuing to work through with them. They've already shown us that they're able to take Studio Ghibli art style and apply that very well to a game, so I do not really think they'd have a big problem taking the art style of Chrono Trigger, working with Akira Toriyama to make that into a style that way. But again, Level 5 would be a really great studio to take on that task. The other studio I think would be very interesting to play around with would be Tokyo RPG Factory. Now, for those of you who do not know who Tokyo RPG Factory is the people who made I Am Setsuna, which is kind of coined as a spiritual successor to Chrono Trigger, which I think was kind of detrimental to that game, because it is a really good game that gets overlooked quite a bit, unfortunately. And it's kind of sad to see how that game just gets brushed aside. But they have already proven that they are able to get in there and really handle Chrono Trigger's battle system very well. They really took that kind of art style up to a little bit more, that old school art style that Chrono Trigger had, or feel that Chrono Trigger had, and added that in there. I Am Setsuna's combat was very fluent. It was one of the big highlights of that game, for one. I mean, there were special attacks in there. I feel like that would be a great way. But more than that, I think it would be a good way for Tokyo RPG Factory to kind of cement their name in the video game industry, really push forward their talent and see what they could do by working on this beloved classic. And only thing I'd say they would have to do is they'd have to step away from the art style that Lost Sphere and I Am Setsuna had and go with something that looked a bit better. Something a bit maybe more isometric in that particular terms. And kind of making it work from there. I think that would be really, really cool for them to do. Now, let's talk about what Square Enix needs to do to this franchise. For the love of everything that's good about Chrono Trigger, do not do this episodic. The game needs to be shipped and sold on one disc or one download, whatever, as its full game content. It definitely needs a more graphical overhaul than what the Secret of Mana remake got. I'm not bashing on the Secret of Mana remake. I think that worked very well for what it was trying to present. But if we're talking about what Square Enix needs to do, it has to have a little bit more of a better graphical look than that. You know, if we're going to incorporate voice acting, the lips, I think, actually need to move. But they need to keep the story intact. I feel like if they really wanted to, they could kind of go in and dive a bit more into Chrono Cross, make them Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross kind of connect a bit more. If we're going to go with a version to go with, I think they should go with the Nintendo DS version. I think that would be the version to go off of, since it added that new dungeon, that new final boss at the end. It kind of has an ending that ties in a little bit to Chrono Trigger or Chrono Cross there. But I think that's what Square Enix should do if they ever do decide to remake Chrono Trigger. The other thing that I think they need to do is keep the battle system intact. The reason Chrono Trigger is so well known is because of its battle system. Because of the way it incorporates the battle system, how well it was. It was one of the first few games to really make it so battles took place seamlessly on the field. It was one of the first games to really reinvent that concept, and one of the only few from that time frame that I think even really used that didn't take you to a separate battlefield. But going forward, Square Enix needs to do something like that. Now, the next thing I want to bring up that Square Enix needs to do with the Chrono Trigger remake is they need to get Masato Kato back to rewrite some of the scripts if they're going to tie this into Chrono Cross. I feel like that would just kind of be his way to come in, tie that into his project, and ultimately go on from there. And for heaven forbid, you're going to do another Chrono Trigger or Chrono Cross, Chrono Trigger sequel, Masato Kato needs to come back. That is Kato's child. He's done such a wonderful time with the concept of the story, and I love his work. What can I say? He's a very good writer. But that, guys, is kind of what I think Square Enix needs to do. I want to hear, though, what do you guys think about a Chrono Trigger remake? What do you think Square Enix needs to go in and do to make this successful? Do you think maybe they should just not even touch Chrono Trigger at this point? Leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Be sure to hit subscribe there for me. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Like and share the video. Check out my latest video. And most importantly, guys, stay happy, be happy, game happy. Spoons is checking out.